would be really about every single cell in your body. Why? Because this is about energy. And there is no cell which can do without energy. Every cell requires energy. They get energy in different ways. But at the end, all of them need the energy which we produce in the form of ATP. Whenever the cell requires energy, the only way it can get energy is by converting ATP into ADP, hydrolysis of ATP. You understand? There's no other way. There are exceptions, one or two, but there's no other way. It's always we convert ATP into ADP. ولا حتى ATP into AMP. We don't do that. We do that for a different thing. That's the only way. And therefore, the only way we can obtain energy is from production of ATP. And that is how we do it. These pathways shows you how we produce ATP in our cells. Metabolic challenge, metabolic release of energy. This is all about where is the origin of energy. The origin of energy is the sun. You understand? Which goes into the plant, which goes into the animal. That's how we get it. I get the sugar, which is made by me, by the plant. The plant made it by ash, photosynthesis, which is the sun. So our energy mainly comes from ash, from the sun. If you ask me, what is the most important sugar molecule which you can think of? Straight out answer, glucose. Why? Every single cell in my body knows how to metabolize glucose. But not all cells knows how to metabolize lipids. Not all cells knows how to metabolize proteins. You understand? Glucose is the most common sugar molecule in my body. And it is ash. It is the first molecule my cell go to produce energy. Must you know, look around and then say, okay, there's no sugar, there's no glucose, let me see galactose, let me see amino acid. No, it doesn't work like this. If you tell my son now, produce energy, straight away it uses glucose to produce energy. Why? Because the enzymes for the metabolism of a glucose are known as housekeeping enzymes. Yani they are always there in the cell. Always. If I want to use lipid, for example, for the production of energy, it will take me a day or two to synthesize the enzymes which metabolize fat. You understand? So you cannot just burn fat, just go hungry and burn. No, it does not work like this. Because the enzymes of fat metabolism are not there. Or if they are there, they are so little that it makes no difference. So it is a group. Every single cell requires a glucose and depend on the glucose for the production of energy. It is the fastest source of production of energy. Why? Because the enzymes are already there. If I need a fast energy, I have to metabolize glucose. Because the enzymes موجودة. Others will take time. Third, glucose required by every single cell in the body, but in certain cells it is obligatory, meaning they cannot use anything else but the glucose to produce energy, like the RBC, kidney medulla, islands. They cannot brain at normal level can only use glucose to produce energy. The muscle can use fatty acid beside the glucose. But these tissues which I had just mentioned, no. They can only, they are obligatory. They have no choice but to use glucose to produce energy. So you could see the glucose is extremely important. Now, the priming pathway, meaning the first pathway which you can activate to use glucose, is known as glycolysis. So any cell requires glucose should have the enzyme for glycolysis. And every cell uses the glucose, so therefore every cell has glycolytic enzymes. You understand? So glycolysis is there in every cell. Now, what is a glycolysis? What is the reaction in a cell? We will come to that. But I would like to give you first an overview. Glycolysis, if somebody asks me, what is a glycolysis? I say glycolysis is the conversion of a glucose into pyruvate with the aim of production of ATP, energy. That's what glycolysis is. It's the conversion of a glucose into pyruvate to produce. There are two types of glycolysis: aerobic and anaerobic. What do we mean by that? Meaning aerobic glycolysis is when you convert glucose into pyruvate with the use of oxygen to produce energy. What is anaerobic? Obviously, anaerobic is the conversion of a glucose not into pyruvate into the next step, which is known as lactate, to produce energy. So we have two forms of glycolytic pathway. The other thing is, glycolysis is the only pathway which you can use to produce energy in the absence of oxygen. There is no other pathway. Every other pathway for energy production requires oxygen. Ma'adamin, glycolysis. Which one? Anaerobic? Glycolysis. It is responsible for your first 3 minutes on Earth. When you are born, for about 3 to 4 minutes, you cut off from the oxygen supplies of the mother because your lung is full of liquid, so you cannot breathe. But the child is still, and if you cut completely energy off for the brain, you will have brain damage. So what the brain does, brain straight away switches to anaerobic glycolysis to produce energy. That's why when the baby take it, they put them over, they slap them on the back to get the fluid out until the alveoles of the lungs are open, so he could breathe. And then he could switch back again to aerobic glycolysis. So it is responsible for our life. So whenever you require energy, the first thing you go to is glycolysis, the glycolytic pathway. So you know now the importance of glycolysis. There's many reactions in the glycolysis. And I don't want to take you through that, but just to tell you, look at it. You start from, where is the glucose? The glucose, you go down. This is known as one stage, and then you go down to there and go through the other pathway, which is called the second or third stage. So glycolysis, you could convert it into the stages. I will show you this, which is easier to understand. Because I don't care about structure, you understand? I care about length. So what's the glycolysis? Conversion of a glucose into pyruvate. That is the glycolysis. That is the main glycolytic pathway. And you will see there are about 9 reactions, so therefore 9 enzymes involved in it. I don't care about enzymes. I care about few, which I will show you why. Glucose is first converted into glucose 6-phosphate. This is phosphorylation. What do you think? What is the name of the enzyme which phosphorylates things? Kinase. So this is a glucokinase or hexokinase. In the liver is a glucokinase. The rest of the body is hexokinase. Both of them take phosphate from ATP added to glucose to form glucose 6-phosphate by hexokinase. That's the first reaction. What is the glycolytic pathway function? What is the function we said? To produce what? Produce energy. Isn't it? What did we do there? We use energy. We use energy. Before you can produce energy, you have to use energy. ATP into ADP. That's the first reaction. Second reaction, conversion. Glucose 6-phosphate into fructose 6-phosphate. This is all we're doing is we're converting an aldo sugar into a keto sugar. Fructose is a keto sugar. صحيح glucose is aldehyde. That is a ketone. That doesn't matter. That's not important. Why we're converting is because the next enzyme is specific to the fructoform rather than the aldoform. So forget that one. Glucose 6-phosphate, fructose 6-phosphate. Now fructose 6-phosphate into fructose 1,6-bis phosphate. What did we do? We added another phosphate. Look, ATP into. So what the enzyme will be called? A kinase. Fructokinase. So there are 2 enzymes now you need to know. Hexokinase and phosphofructokinase. And we produce fructose 1,6-bis phosphate or diphosphate. That's the second reaction. Shouldn't know, huh? This is known, these 2 reactions or 3 reactions, these are known as phosphorylation stage. To do ايش? To phosphorylate. Simple. The next reaction, the next phase is known as the splitting stage. What do we mean by splitting? Look at it. Fructose 1,6-bis phosphate into 2 molecules. What is glucose? Is a hexo? Is a hexo, صحيح or not? 6-carbon compound, isn't it? We cut it right in the middle to form glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate and dihydroxy acetophosphate. يعني we converted into 2 trioses. Both of them 3-carbon compound, each one. And both of them, one is an aldo, one is a keto. This is known as the splitting stage. خلصت. The last phase is the most important phase. And this is known as the oxidation reduction stage. Because if somebody asks what type of form or what form glycolytic pathway is an oxidation pathway. Oxidizes things. What is oxidation? Loss of electrons. What is reduction? Gain of electrons. So we did 2 phases. Fine? 2 phases. And I asked only 2 enzymes to know. Hexokinase and phosphofructokinase. Aldolase, if you don't want to know it, it doesn't matter. Now the third stage. The third stage comes from glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. زين شو اسوي بالدايهيدروكسي اسيتون فوسفيت؟ شو اسوي فيه؟ احوله. We can convert it. Look at it, these 2. We can convert it into glyceraldehyde phosphate by an isomerase. simple enzyme, isomerase. You don't need to know. But we converted it to. So now we have one glucose. How many glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate we have? 2. Then حولنا dihydroxyphosphate أيضا لمين? To glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate by a simple enzyme which is known as isomerase. Is that clear? إذا 2 glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, how many of these will be producing? 2. How many of these? How many of these? How many pyruvate? 2. Everything now is 2. Before it was 1. Now it is H. Everything is 2. Then we convert a hexose into 2 trioses. Now the most important reaction of كل glycolytic pathway. مش قلنا it is an oxidative pathway? Look what's happened. Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, 3 carbon compound, on carbon 3 there is a phosphate. We convert it into H, into 1,3-diphospho, bisphosphoglycerate. Yani we put a phosphate on carbon number 1. And I just told you what the enzyme will be called? Kinase. Follow that? The kinase. But this is not a kinase. Why? Because kinase always get or obtain phosphate from ATP. Is there an ATP here? This is glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. Meaning cause oxidation. Look what we did. We converted aldehyde into a keto, glycerate. Meaning this is an oxidation. It means we lost a electron. NAD into, look at the electrons. So this reaction, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase, does 2 functions. Add phosphate and H and reduce NAD, a coenzyme. So 2 glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, 2 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate. How many NAD into NADH? How many? 2. كل واحد. So we produce 2 NADHs. Is that clear? So this is a dehydrogenase. What is ATP? What is ATP? I know it is adenosine triphosphate. What is it? وفسر الماء بعد الجهد بالماء. What is? This is what is it? Energy? It's a compound, right? Is it energy? Is it what? ATP. ATP is a form of a storage of energy. That is all. It stores energy. It is fun. So how do I know? You remember this, delta G? You know delta G gives energy? Gives you free energy, huh? Delta G thermodynamics. Delta G. Delta G hydrolysis of the terminal phosphate of ATP. If you hydrolyze that last phosphate, yani add water and break it, it will produce minus 7.2 kilocalories. Meaning it produces energy. So if you convert ATP into ADP, زائدا inorganic phosphate, you produce also energy, which is minus 7.2 kilocalories. Delta G negative means you produced exothermic. That's why ATP is called high energy compound. It's not a high energy compound. High energy compound, it tells you as if it is unstable. No, ATP is stable. Come to the lab, I have it in a bottle. Stable. But if you hydrolyze it, it produces 7.2 calorie. So how much energy I need to convert ADP into ATP? Plus 7.2 kilo. You understand? That's one energy. So if you break it, it produces that much. If you want to make it, you have to put that much in it. Is that clear? Clear? Shabbat? Because the next item I discuss depend on understanding this. Delta G hydrolysis of ATP. You understand? Go on. Sorry? You mean, you want me to repeat it? The enzyme. This enzyme. This one? Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase, G6. Dehydrogenase. I will write, it is written by the way there, and you will see them later. Now, can you look at this? 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate. This is also, this enzyme, this molecule, 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate, is also a high energy compound. إذا هذا الترم صحيح, قلنا ATP is high energy compound. This is also a high energy compound. The الحقيقة delta G hydrolysis of this will produce not minus 7.2, it produces minus 9.5 kilocalories. Is it higher than ATP? Yes. So that energy, if this breaks down, hydrolyzed, and produce that much energy, can I convert ADP into ATP? Yes. I can. I need 7.2. And I'm producing, hydrolyze it, 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate into 3-phosphoglycerate. You're moving 1 phosphate. Look, ADP into ATP is a high energy compound. What do you call this enzyme? Kinase, thiokinase. The next reaction, 3-phosphor into 2-phosphor, ما يهمك شيل الفوسفات من مكان وخلينا على مكان ثاني, carbon 2. And then this, by taking water out of it, we convert it into PEP, phosphoenol pyruvate. This is known as phosphoenol pyruvate. What about phosphoenol pyruvate? Phosphoenol pyruvate is a high energy compound. Delta G hydrolysis of phosphoenol pyruvate will produce 8.5 kilocalories. Can I produce ATP? I'm not. Is there enough energy? I'm not. There is enough energy. ADP into, and I produce pyruvate. This is the end of age glycolytic pathway. So I will answer it. Glycolytic pathway is conversion of a glucose into pyruvate with the net production of how many NADHs? 1. Which going to 2 دولي. 2. How many ATPs? 4. كل شيء 2. انت جيت متأخر. كل شيء 2. We produce 4. But didn't we consume 2 at the top? So the net is 8. So glycolytic pathway مرة ثانية أقول is the conversion of a glucose into pyruvate with the net production of 2 NADHs and 2 ATPs. That's the glycolytic pathway. How many enzymes? قلت لك أنا 3 enzymes. Hexokinase, phosphofructokinase, and إيش؟ glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. خلاص. من 9 الأنزيم نقص لك إياه إلى 3. This you need to know. This is a kinase, and this is إيش؟ Anytime you produce ATP معناه or you consume ATP, it is إيش؟ It is a kinase. That's what glycolysis is. Do you have a problem? Do you have a problem? No. That's how we produce energy. The three enzymes, hexokinase, phosphofructokinase, 3FK, and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. والبقية قلت لك إنها kinases anyway. حتى هذا, pyruvate kinase آخر واحد. All kinases. You had a question? Yeah.
If the PAP or 5-phosphoglycerate can net more energy than ATP, why don't we use them to store energy in our
You're talking about here?
Yes.
We produce 9.5 kilocalorie. How much I need for ATP? 7.2. 9.5 minus 7.2.8. Fine? And then what? And 1.5, so you have about 2 point something. Yeah? 2 point something kilocalorie?
No, I'm not talking about 2 point something. Why don't we ليش ما نستخدمه كأساس بدل ATP على طول؟
That's the whole thing which I said at the beginning. One statement I said. I said my cell does not know how to produce energy or uses energy unless it comes to it in the form of عندي الانزيمات حتى استعملها ما أعرف غير ATP. That's why. And now there is extra energy. What do you think? Energy. What is energy? What's happened? Energy will either be destroyed or created. So what do you think that energy would be? Temperature. What is temperature? What is temperature? Keep my body cold temperature at 37 degrees centigrade. So it is not wasted. You understand? But that's how it works. Oxygen can be used by the cells, the only cells who contain mitochondria. Well, if you don't have mitochondria, can you use oxygen? No. No cell can use oxygen unless it has mitochondria. The RBC فيها oxygen. في oxygen RBC؟ فيها مليانة oxygen. RBC, do you know how many? Do you want to tell you how much? 250 million oxygen molecules in each RBC. So there's a plenty of oxygen. But can it use it? Can it use it? No, because it does not have a mitochondria. You understand? Mitochondria. So what do you think? What can we do? If I take one of you, which one you don't like? You don't like it? If I take him to the pool, swimming pool, there in the university, and dip him in the water and keep him underwater, how long do you think it will take until he sees the malaika? Seconds? 10 seconds? اللي إذا أبو غواص هذا شيء ثاني. 10 seconds. Why do you think? Why? Why do you think it's that? Why does happen? Why? Do you know why? Because all your NAD has been converted into NADH. To stay alive, you need to reconvert NADH back into NAD, so glycolysis kinase continues. Aerobic glycolysis, anaerobic glycolysis, that's what it does. There is one way of converting, regenerating NAD from NADH aerobically, and one which is anaerobically. If he can, underwater, could do that, he would stay alive. RBC does not have mitochondria. Look what it does. Glucose into pyruvate. How do you mean? Glycolysis. Silona? Just now. NAD into NADH. RBC has an enzyme known as lactate dehydrogenase, which does what? Convert pyruvate into lactate, lactic acid, and convert NADH back into, يعني we generated NAD. Lactate comes out of the RBC, goes to the liver and converts it back into glucose. يعني the RBC can live using energy by ايش؟ Anaerobic glycolysis. Does not use oxygen. Anaerobic glycolysis. Because it has an enzyme. One of you, him again. كله هو اليوم. Get him and tell him, start running. And I don't want you to stop. You could run for a mile, kilometer, 2 kilometers. Are you fit? Not fit. Meaning after half a kilometer, the first thing which you're going to feel is what? Pain in your calf muscles. What do you think is that? Do you know what it is? Because you're not having enough oxygen. So what the muscle does, muscle convert from aerobic glycolysis to anaerobic glycolysis. It has lactate dehydrogenase and start producing lactic acid. Increase in lactic acid in your calf muscle results in the pain. Meaning you are not breathing enough. You understand? So the muscle can produce anaerobic glycolysis. Brain, in certain instances, can use anaerobic glycolysis. And all these tissues which do not have mitochondria, they use anaerobic glycolysis to produce energy. يعني حلت مشكلة regeneration of NAD by converting NADH into NAD, converting pyruvate into lactate.
هل ممكن يكون في لاكتيك أسيد بالقلب؟
ها؟
هل ممكن يكون في لاكتيك أسيد بالقلب؟
Does? حتى لاكتيك بالقلب. When you are born, didn't I say that? When you're born, the first 3 minutes, your heart is still pumping. Babies is still pumping. Using anaerobic glycolysis. But if it's continued, then you'll have the ischemic heart attack. Huh? That's what you have when you have a pain. Pain in me. Pain in the pain in the muscle. The myocardial muscle. Is that clear? خلاص, converted into glucose. You will see that later. Back in the glucose, yeah? And you could use it again, yeah? How about aerobic glycolysis? Therefore, anaerobic glycolysis, glucose into lactate, with the net production of how many ATPs? 2 ATPs. How many NADHs? 2. صحيح ولا لا؟ يعني كلكم نايمين ما شاء الله. ولقد بح صوتي وأنا شو أقول؟ أقول regenerate NAD. عندنا NADH بعد؟ مش حولنا NADH مرة ثانية إلى NAD؟ ظل NADH؟ صفر. إذا anaerobic glycolysis is a glucose into pyruvate with the net production of 2 ATPs وخلاص. ما في. NADH is converted back into NAD to continue glycolysis. If we don't do that, glycolysis stops. If glycolysis stops, we cannot breathe. You understand? Aerobic glycolysis. Cells which has mitochondria. The first cells which come to my mind which has mitochondria is the brain and the muscle. صحيح ولا لا? These are the highest mitochondria in the. So how? We go back again. How? I am asking you because you've done it. And I just came from the person who has taught you that. I want to get rid of these electrons. These electrons from NADH, it gives its electron to the mitochondria. Produces NAD. And then these two electrons depend. Did they go through complex 1? Or did they go through complex? Did they go through NADH? Or did they go through FAH? Each pair of electrons goes into a cytochrome chain, complex 1, complex 3, complex 4, and then complex 5 produces how many ATPs? 3 from NADH. Complex 1 is a pump, complex 3 is a pump, complex 4 is a pump. So that means 3 ATPs are produced. GLH, NADH. How many NADH we did? Produced 2. And then 3 times 2. And then aerobic glycolysis is the conversion of a glucose into pyruvate with the net production of 2 NADHs and 2 ATP. صحيح ولا؟ لكن NADH ما ضل NADH. صحيح ولا؟ تحول إلى NAD by giving it to ايش؟ To the mitochondria, to the electron transport system, which end up giving to oxygen to be converted into ash, water. We produce water. You understand? And the meantime, because it loses energy, we produce ash, 3 ATPs. Then I have 2, then 6. And then how many ATPs we produce in aerobic glycolysis? 8. 2 from this is called substrate level phosphorylation, and 6 from oxidative phosphorylation. Why we call it oxidation? Because this electron يعطي الواحد, it become reduced, it's become oxidized. يعطي الواحد, you understand? Sorry, oxidized, it's become reduced. So it's called oxidative phosphorylation because it's transfer of electron. And this is known as aerobic glycolysis. So you now know how to do aerobic glycolysis and anaerobic glycolysis, and you know why we're doing it. Because we need to age, we need to regenerate. Because we need to regenerate mean NAD. إذا واحد قال وتوفى من الخلق يعني he could not regenerate ايش؟ NAD. That's all. You understand? It is NAD regeneration which is required to keep glycolysis. So in the RBC, only glycolysis. There's nobody else. In the brain, in the muscle, they produce it. Pyruvate. What's happened? You understand? What's happened? Is that all? Is that the end? No. In RBC, that is the end. قلنا الأكتيات تطلع منهم وتروح إلى وين؟ To the liver and converted into ايش؟ Glucose. So that is the end. In the case of RBC, kidney, medulla, islands, وما. In the case of brain and muscle, no. Perhaps something else. Look what's happened. This is anaerobic glycolysis. Pyruvate is converted into lactate وانتهينا هنا. خلاص. In the case of the brain and the muscle, look, the pyruvate is converted further. طبعا glycolysis end. I'm talking now about a different reaction. Now there is a reaction which links the glycolysis to the next pathway. لا هو من الglycolysis ولا هو من ايش؟ Next pathway. Look at it. Pyruvate. كم pyruvate we have? 2. Into ايش؟ Acetyl coenzyme. Acetate coenzyme. Coenzyme is a carrier. Acetyl coenzyme. هذه هي الكربونات اللي اجت من مين؟ من الجلوكوز. Look by pyruvate dehydrogenase, an enzyme. Why? Because it causes oxidation. Look what we convert. We convert pyruvate into acetate. Look, NAD into We produce another NADH here. How many we have? 2. How many acetyl we produced? 2. How many NADH we produced? 2. And we also produce something else. Carbon dioxide. Remember? Glucose, how many carbon? 6 carbon. Pyruvate, how many carbon? We converted pyruvate, a 3 carbon compound, into how many? 2. So that is the first time we converted the carbon skeleton of a glucose into. That's now. Aren't you breathing on me? Carbon dioxide? Where do you think that came from? That's the first reaction. That's where we produce carbon dioxide, which we breathe out. NAD, NADH. 2 NAD, 2 NADH. This occurs not in the cytosol. كل الجلايكوليسيس أنا ما أقول الشيء هذا صحيح. الجلايكوليسيس كله بالسيتوسول. يعني قلت لكم في النهاية you have to give the electron to me, to the mitochondria. It means what? It means it must be outside the mitochondria, the cytosol. Like now, pyruvate will enter the mitochondria and convert into the. So this occurs within where? The mitochondria. Then, الإلكترونات وين تروح؟ وين تروح الإلكترونات؟ نفس المكان الإلكترون ترانسبورت سيستم. إذا هي برا تروح الإلكترون فما بالك إذا هي داخل NADH converted back into NAD with the next production of how many ATPs? 2 of them. كل واحد 3. How many? 6. So we produce another 6 in the heart. The RBC, how many? 2. Kidney medulla, how many? 2. Islands, how many? 2. This? 6. زائدا قبل كم؟ 8. How many we have? Can you see how much energy we produce again? 14 ATPs. 14 مش ATP. And we talk about, when I say 14, I mean moles of ATP. 1 mole of a glucose, 14 moles of ATP, 2 moles of NADH. You understand? We're not talking about AH number, moles, number of moles. And we produce acetyl coenzyme. خلاص. This is what's happened. Glycolytic pathway and the linking reaction. Another way. Pyruvate can be converted into acetaldehyde into acetic acid. What is acetic acid? What is acetic acid بالعربية؟ خل مخلل. Acetic acid. This is known as ايش؟ fermentation. I know you always get the bottle from Safeway, yeah? My mother didn't have Safeway. My grandmother didn't have Safeway. They used to make it where? On the roof. They take sugar, dates, sugar, put some yeast on it, and then put it in some big jars and leave it until it makes acetic acid. So acetic acid is glycolytic pathway. That's how we make it. يعني my grandmother knew how glycolysis work. Not in this detail, but she knew. To make acetic acid, you have to do this. And you know what we used to do? We used to watch her when she comes down from the stairs. We look at her. If she is moving, solid like, that acetic acid has been done, converted. If you see her تتمايل شوية, is what? She's drunk. because it goes through ethanol. أول يوم ethanol, ثاني يوم ethanol, ثالث يوم رابع يوم خامس يوم سادس يوم سابع يوم إلى يوم 14. Day 14, all is converted into ايش؟ Acetic acid. So when she go early, وتذوق there, وتذوق there, وتذوق there, خلاص سكرت. I hear of certain grandmothers falling down, breaking their necks because they're drunk. And they don't know. This is how we make alcohol. But I'm not teaching you. So alcohol fermentation is also ايش؟ يعني فكر في إذا كانوا دول شو يسموهم الحسبة بزمننا كل بيت هو مخمرة منتبه كل واحد عنده 20 30 بطل خمر قاعد يسوي فوق ما يدري. So this is known as ايش؟ ferment, which is ايش؟ another form of glycolysis. شايف it's very easy, very simple. Now, when you finish into acetyl coenzyme A, the next pathway is known as citric acid pathway, or citric acid cycle, or Krebs cycle. It has اسماء كثيرة, tricarboxylic acid cycle. So this is known as citric acid cycle. We'll go into that in the next reaction. But I want to know, do you think it is important or not important to regulate it? Should we regulate it or not? طبعا you could see all this I have already talked about energy loss of mitochondria, yeah? So I'm not going through it. But is it important or is it not important to regulate it? Remember this, glucose, glycolysis, into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, into 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate, into 3-phosphoglycerate. That's what's happened in the RBC. To produce ATP, glycolysis. If you come to 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate, coming to 2,3-phosphoglycerate, higher glycolysis, in the RBC, there is an enzyme known as 2,3-DPG mutase, which produces 2,3-DPG. And then this becomes dephosphorylated by 2,3-DPG phosphatase into ايش؟ 2,3. إذا اجينا من هناك واجينا من هنا, are we still producing ATP? No. Meaning ايش? Meaning we produce 2 ATP here, we use 2 ATP at the top. Is it at the end of the day 0 ATP? So if you come that way, this is not for energy production. This is not for energy production. This is for production of something else. In this case, 2,3-DPG, diphosphoglycerate. What is diphosphoglycerate does? Increase in diphosphoglycerate lead to decrease in the affinity of hemoglobin to oxygen. Decrease into 2,3-DPG lead to increase in the affinity of hemoglobin to oxygen. You say why? This is obviously this is for the transport of oxygen at the lungs. What do you need to have? You need to have hemoglobin with high affinity to attract, to bind the glucose, to bind oxygen. So you need DPG to be low or high? Low. When it goes to the muscle, you wanted the opposite one. You wanted to release it. So therefore, glycolytic pathway in the RBC, مش فقط to produce energy, also to regulate. Regulate what? Regulate the transport of oxygen. You understand? So it has two functions. Produces energy and regulate the transport of oxygen. تقول لي Is that important? Well, let's see what's happened. If you have hexokinase deficient, hexokinase is which enzyme? The first enzyme, right? If you have hexokinase deficiency, what do you think will happen? اللي بعده راح ايش؟ يقل. واللي بعده يقل. واللي بعده 1 3 bisphosphoglycerate راح يزيد أم يقل؟ راح يقل. 2 3 DPG راح يقل أم يزيد؟ راح يقل. إذا قل شو صار؟ hemoglobin affinity has increased, meaning when the hemoglobin bound to oxygen come to the muscle, it will not release it because it has high affinity, lead to ايش؟ hypoxia, not enough oxygen in the peripheral tissue. هذا إذا inhibited way right at the beginning. Either you eaten something or you have a genetic disease which lead to hexokinase deficiency. Look at it. It's pushed it to the left. If you do the last enzyme, pyruvate kinase, remember? آخر enzyme, pyruvate kinase deficiency. And many people have pyruvate kinase deficiency. What will happen? اللي قبله راح يكون ايش؟ يرتفع. واللي قبله step يرتفع. Meaning 2 3 dB will go up. معناه the affinity of hemoglobin is low. معناه when it comes to the lung, will it be fully saturated? No. راح يكون again hemoglobin leaching the tissues with less oxygen, which will also lead to high hypoxia. So you could see regulation of the glycolytic pathway is extremely important because it is involved in ATP production and it is also involved in regulation of oxygen transport. You understand? Oxygen transport. This is extremely important. So shall we regulate it? Yes, we should regulate it. All the glycolytic pathways, all the reactions are reversible. You could take it that way, you take it there. Same enzyme. Could push it this way and push it the other way. Reversible. ما عدا hexokinase, the first one, phosphofructokinase, the second one, the أول ATP ثاني phosphofructokinase, and pyruvate. These are irreversible. You cannot reverse them. So where do you think I should be able to regulate glycolytic? At the irreversible steps or the reversible steps? At the I tell you what, at the reversible steps, the steps which can be reversed, you are controlled by mass action law, by the K constant of the reaction. So you know chemistry. Reaction goes from here to here until they reach the mass action law. You cannot push it that way, خلاص. But at the reversible, no. You could push it all the way, or you could inhibit it all the way. So glycolytic pathway is regulated at the irreversible steps. How many enzymes we have? 3. Hexokinase, phosphofructokinase, and pyruvate kinase. كاتبهم لك هنا. You understand? Let's show hexokinase. Hexokinase is inhibited by glucose 6 phosphate product inhibition. So if the glucose زاد معناه ايش؟ يقول لك enough. Don't produce energy لأنه is increasing. We're not using it. This reaction, which catalyzed by hexokinase, is not that important in regulation of glycolysis. Then you will find that glucose 6-phosphate, we use it in other pathways too. So it is not unique to glycolysis, it is to many more reactions. Phosphofructokinase, the second enzyme. You understand? That's phosphofructokinase, which is known as PFK1 or whatever. Phosphofructokinase is the pacemaker of glycolysis. So little heart into pacemaker, it's a pacemaker. It is the one which makes it high or makes it slow. What do you think ATP will do to it? What do you think? ATP will inhibit it or stimulate it? Will inhibit it. Why? Because that means enough. Don't burn the glucose. Glucose is important. So ATP will do what? Inhibit it. How about AMP? إذا تجيني براس الشهر وتشوف الفلوس اللي بجيبي بحفظتي كلها أبو 500 يعني أنا إيش؟ ريتش. نهاية الشهر بعد أن المرأة الزوجة تمر فيه ها راح أشوف بس أبو 5 ريالات يعني إيش؟ يعني مفلس. ATP mean I'm rich. AMP يعني إيش؟ مفلس. ما في. I'm converted ATP into ADP وبعدين ADP زائد ال ADP حتى أسوي ATP صار AMP. فAMP is إيش؟ Stimulator of the glycolysis. Meaning we don't have enough energy. While ATP is إيش؟ Inhibitor. Citrate means I have plenty of 2,3-DPG. إذا إيش؟ إذا important synthetic compound. صار عندي كثير منه. أظل أسوي بعد؟ لا ما محتاج. فالcitrate going to be إيش؟ An inhibitor. Phosphofructokinase is an allosteric enzyme, meaning it is binding site for ATP, binding site for citrate, binding site for AMP. ATP citrate inhibited, AMP stimulated. Allosteric enzyme. It has more than one binding site. Last but not least, hexokinase is inhibited by ATP. Too much energy. Inhibited by ATP. It is also regulated by hormones, but I will not do that until we have a 10-minute break or 5-minute break. 5-minute break. I forgot, I didn't see that. You want a break or shall I continue? Continue? Break. 5 minutes. I want that. Right, that's my sugar. Ivan Applebot, 56-year-old, morbidly obese, يعني overweight. صحيح? Accountant, because accountant always sitting on chair and never move. He decided to see his dentist because he felt excruciating pain, very bad pain in his teeth. When he ate ice cream, he really likes the sweet and keeps a hard candy and chocolate always in his pocket. يعني هذا يمشي ما شاء الله مش مهم. The dentist noted from Applebot history that he had numerous cavities as a child. يعني هذا المعلم على صدعات قلبي هذا من عمره طفل هو ايش؟ He has this problem. As a child, his baby too. At this visit, the dentist found cavities in which one? 2 of his teeth. So what is the problem? Simple. He ate ice cream, he ate sugar, he ate candies, and probably never washed his teeth very carefully. So there is some sugar left in wear on his teeth. At night he sleeps. Saliva is reduced. Right? The release of saliva at night when you are asleep comes down. You don't produce a lot of saliva when you sleep, you produce it when you're awake. Which means the enzymes, alpha amylase, that is going to go down. Then who is around? Bacteria. What the bacteria does? Bacteria start taking up the glucose, the sugar. And the bacteria carries out anaerobic glycolysis. Anaerobic glycolysis does what? Convert glucose into lactate, into lactic acid. Meaning it's going to increase or decrease the pH, increase the acidity, decrease the pH around apple pot teeth. When the pH comes down to about pH 4, this affects the enamel, which covers the teeth. Make it more less solid, and more penetrable. So the bacteria start now penetrating into the animal. And that is the start of dental caries. So dental caries is due to me, is due to anaerobic glycolysis, but not by you, by the bacteria. Happy? It is all about pathways, nothing else. And this is what we say here. Is the second